Now Jacob gets old. Verse 28. His family has multiplied exceedingly, and he lived 17 more years in Egypt. So he died at 147. He's not dead yet, but that's when he will die. Verse 29, the time drew near that Israel must die, and he called his son Joseph, and called him and said, If now I have found grace in thy sight, put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh, and deal kindly and truly with me. Bury me not, I pray thee, in Egypt, but I will lie with my fathers, and thou shalt carry me out of Egypt, and bury me in their burying place. And Joseph said, I will do as you have said. And Jacob said, Swear unto me. And Joseph sware unto him, and Israel bowed himself upon the bed's head. Now after this, right before he dies, Joseph has a private audience with Jacob. When I first taught the Old Testament course, I didn't require my students to read every chapter and every verse. I would pick out chapters to leave out just so things would move along. And one of the chapters I chose in the beginning, in 76, 7, 8, whenever I started, one of the chapters I chose to leave out was chapter 48, which I learned in time had one of the major events in the Bible in it. So after that, everybody reads every chapter and every verse. In this chapter 48, Joseph comes to see his father, and he brings his two young sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And Jacob is very old, very weak. His eyesight may be getting dim. And he looks at Joseph and said, Who's that with you? And he said, They're my two sons that God gave me here in Egypt. And he brought them out from between his knees. Now, he knows that the father's right hand is where the blessing, the chief blessing is. So he takes Manasseh, the older son, in his left hand, holding with his left hand, Ephraim this way, to walk them up to their old grandfather, so that their grandfather could just reach out and bless Manasseh, the older son, with his right hand, and Ephraim with his left. And when he get up there, the Spirit of God moves Jacob to do like this. And Joseph reached out and said, No, you don't understand. He said, No, you don't understand. God's going to take this one and make him the head. And Joseph doesn't argue with that, because he's seen how God works. And the blessing is this, the wording of it, in verse 5. And now thy two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born unto thee in the land of Egypt, before I came unto thee in Egypt, are mine. As Reuben and Simeon, they are mine. This is the major event. Joseph is elevated above his brothers. So you have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. When we get into Canaan's land will be divided among the different families of it that descended from these men. They don't call them families, they call them tribes. It's the same word. Tribes of Israel, families of Israel's sons. That's all it means. There is never a tribe of Joseph. But then that doesn't leave us but 11 tribes of Israel. But what did Jacob just say? Ephraim and Manasseh are mine, just as Reuben, just as Simeon, just as Levi. So actually what you end up with is 13 tribes. There never were just 12. I know we're talking about the 12 tribes of Israel a lot, but there's a reason that that's mentioned instead of 13. There were always 13. You'll see the reason why later. So these are the tribes of Israel now. And on that map, look on map page, let me see, page 62, 3, 4, or 5, somewhere along in there, where it has the tribes and their possessions on it. Right in the middle of Canaan's land, right in here, where Jacob bought land, that's going to be Ephraim, Ephraim's territory. You'll see Manasseh right above there, here in Canaan and over in Gilead. Half of Manasseh lived on one side of the river and half on the other, and that's on the map. But there is no tribe of Joseph. He was superior to all of that. And that's a major event. Does everybody follow that now? You know what's happened. This is the blessing of Joseph, and it's the 6th major event in the book of Genesis. Now, let's see. Chapter 49, Jacob passes on his prophecies for his sons before he dies. We need to look in particular at verse 3 and following, concerning Reuben, Simeon, and Levi. Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity and the excellency of power, unstable as water, thou shalt not excel. That means you're not going to get a double portion. You're not going to excel above your brethren. Because you went up to your father's bed, you defiled it. He went up to my couch. So the price that he paid for that incest, was it Bilhah or Zilpah? Bilhah, wasn't it? Was that he lost his birthright. Simeon and Levi, for their murder of Shechem and Hamor in that city of men, are brethren. The same thing is going to happen to them. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. O my soul, come not thou into their secret. Don't let me be a partaker of their secret evil deeds. Unto their assembly mine honor be not thou united. For in their anger they slew a man. In their self-will they digged down a wall. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. So this is how it plays out. Here are the tribes, all of them given their own land, including Simeon. He had a little possession there. Levi was treated differently. Simeon followed suit after. Simeon there's no section on that map you saw for a tribe of Levi. Levi wasn't given a block of land. For reasons that we'll talk about later, Levi was given 48 cities inside of Israel. So they were scattered in Israel. Simeon was given a piece of land, but he gradually was just married away. His tribe just kind of floated away and disappeared inside Judah and Israel. Inside Judah mainly. His land was within Judah's borders. So Simeon and Levi were cursed not to have a possession and gradually just to disappear within Israel. Well, now that's going to bring up a major problem for the country. Reuben's supposed to get the birthright, but he didn't. The birthright was taken away from Reuben and given to Joseph, and if you're looking for a scripture that actually says it, 1 Chronicles 5:1. Simeon and Levi were next. They didn't. Judah's next. Why didn't he get it? What, Earl? No, I said why is not because of the blessing of Joseph. The question is, why did Joseph get the blessing instead of Judah for a birthright? Can't be because of it, because that's the question. You know, in the law it said if a man has two wives, and the one loved, and the other hated, and the hated wife gives him children before the loved wife gives him children, that he cannot pass over the hated wife's children to give special care to the others. Now, Judah was one of Leah's children. And since Ephraim got the chief blessing, Ephraim becomes the chief of all the tribes of Israel. The people of Judah say, wait a minute. He can't pass over us like that. People of Ephraim said, Jacob can do whatever he wants to. Joseph saved the whole nation. And that tension underlies everything in your reading from now on out. The tension between Judah and Ephraim for supremacy in the country. When God rejects Ephraim and Manasseh, he starts back at the top of the list again and stops at Judah. And that's where it was when Jesus came, and Jesus came from Judah. Verse 8, Thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. The other tribes are going to end up bowing down. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down, he crouched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come. Shiloh is a word that means he who shall be sent. Remember Methuselah, Shalah, Salah, same thing. Shiloh, the sent one, come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. Then he goes on to give prophecies to the other tribes. And when he died, they carried his body. Joseph was very faithful, carried his body over to Canaan's land. Verse 30. In the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought, with the field of Ephron the Hittite for a possession of a burying place. This is very touching, this next sentence. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife. And there I buried Leah. He's going to be buried with Leah, not Rachel. She took the short end of the stick while she was alive, but he showed her the highest honor that he could show her when he died. 6 people buried in the cave of Machpelah. Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Leah. Now, they spent the required mourning time, and they all drifted back. And then Reuben and Simeon and Judah and sitting around, he'd say, you know, Joseph was just waiting for Daddy to die. Now he's going to get us. You watch. He knew Daddy didn't want him to. So they got together and decided they better come up with a plan. So they got a servant, wrote out a message to him, handed it to him. The servant brought it to Joseph, and he read it, and he said, Dear Joseph, Daddy said before he died, don't do anything bad to us. And he means it. And Joseph started crying again. They don't get it yet. They still are trying to take credit for what's happened to me. Still trying to blame themselves. And he went to them and he cried and he wept on it, hugged them. And he told them this. I love this phrase. He told them, I understand that you meant to do evil to me. You see, I'm not saying that you didn't mean to do that. But do you understand that God did it for good? I know you meant evil, but God meant it for good. Can we not come to an agreement here? I'm not holding you responsible because you're not God. If you were God, I'd be upset. But you're not. So I'm happy. He said, God did this for me to save your lives and your children's lives. And look what He's done. I'm not going to change. I didn't bless you because your father was living. I blessed you because God is living. And He's put me here to do that. So then they went on to live. Joseph lived 110 years. They didn't bury him in Canaan. They embalmed Joseph and put him in a coffin in Egypt, and he said, God is going to visit you again and take you out of this place. When you go, you take my bones with you. And that's how the book of Genesis ends. When you turn the page from Genesis to Exodus, you've passed over 300 years.